I first came into the government and somebody asked me, a reporter asked me, what's your top 3 priorities? I said export, export and export. Right. It's a mindset. Are we over-reliant on textiles? Right. My answer to that is yes, we are. In the best interest of the country, we have to move away and start bringing down our reliance. We've got to sort out a lot more yet before we take such a drastic change.
Right.
So
you feel it's a very drastic change to do something like
change.
that?
I don't think we should do it.
Right.
Did you ever hear in the last 2 governments, the PPP and the PMLN, did you ever hear them say export? It never came up.
Welcome, this is Najma Minhas with Global Village Space. I'm joined today by Mr. Razak Dawood, the Prime Minister's Advisor on Commerce and Investment. Razak Sahab, thank you for joining me today.
It's a pleasure.
Razak Sahab, you hold one of the most important portfolios in the government. The Prime Minister himself has highlighted the importance of exports to helping to grow the economy. But we know that exports in Pakistan generally have been stuck in a rut for the past decade or so. If we compare ourselves to our regional neighbors, Bangladesh exports are around $47 billion. India's are $500 billion plus. Even Vietnam has around $290 million. What is your strategy? You've recently, though, said that you've got a target of around $38 billion, $39 billion. How are you going to achieve this?
First of all, you're absolutely right. We've been in a rut for the last 10 years, hovering around 25 billion, and then it went down, and we'd never paid attention to the export of services.
Okay.
So what's our strategy? Our strategy, in order to, first and foremost, put a focus on exports. So when I first came into the government and somebody asked me, a reporter asked me, what's your top 3 priorities? I said exports, export and export.
Right.
It's a mindset.
Right.
Pakistani.
Did you mean the focus of the government or the focus of your ministry when you say exports?
The focus of the government in the last few years. I mean, if you think back, did you ever hear in the last 2 governments, the PPP and the PMLN, did you ever hear them say export?
Okay.
It never came up.
Right.
And all the, once you move focus away from export, then all the policies, etc., start moving away from export.
Okay.
And so you had to get your focus on exports. Then you start removing anti-export biases.
Okay.
Anti-export bias was, in my views, that whenever you increase duties on raw materials or intermediaries, anytime,
okay,
it is an anti-export bias.
Okay.
So that was one thing we did, remove that, and we started removing all the duties on raw materials and intermediaries. That was a big help, and that all of us it acted on it.
Okay.
Then there was a anti-export bias in the sense that we were not giving our export industry internationally competitive energy prices.
Right.
Once that came in by this government, it started to, everybody woke up. The government is serious now. Government wants export to take place because they're now giving us internationally competitive prices. How was internationally competitive prices determined? They were determined by us looking at Bangladesh, India, China, Vietnam, and Cambodia.
Have we come to comparative levels?
We're now competitive. We are competitive. They are all hovering around for the visually
around 7, right?
Around 7, 8.
Right.
It was in that area. In some parts of China, it was lower. But when we did the average, it came to 7 cents for Bijli and $6.5 per MMBTU for the gas for the industry.
Is this a policy that you're going to continue? Because generally we know that energy prices have been rising.
We've kept it fairly constant now for the next 3 months. Because of the difficult situation. The government is going to raise that from $6.5 to $9, and then bring it back down once the summer months come. So that's what we're going to do. With the international prices of oil and gas going up, obviously we feel the strain a lot. So I'm saying yes, let it go up for 3 months and then bring it down. But as a principle, we must give our industry international competitive prices. And we know that Pakistan is a high energy cost country.
So it's interesting that you've talked about energy costs, because that is one of the things the textile industry, for example, talks a lot about. But the question I wanted to ask you on the textile industry is, Pakistan's export basket is almost 50% textiles. For the last 20 years, we haven't changed much. By comparison, if you look at Vietnam, 20 years ago, focus was 20% of its export basket was on crude petroleum and selling crude petroleum. Today, almost 20% of its export basket focuses on integrated circuits, broadcasting equipment, electronic equipment of different types. Similarly, Pakistan has only added around 21 new export products in this export market, whereas Vietnam has added 48. So this is something that is concerning. I mean, what is your department going to do about something like that?
This is a very, very important question. And what we're trying to do about it, we put all this thing down on our strategic trade policy framework. And if there's one word that is an important word in that framework, is diversification. What do I mean by diversification? I'm talking about diversification of products within a sector, diversification into other sectors, and diversification in our geography. Let's look at, you said something that, are we over-reliant on textiles? My answer to that is yes, we are. In the best interest of the country, we have to move away and start bringing down our reliance on textiles.
So how are you going to do that? I mean, it sounds nice, product diversification, but how do you intend to ensure it?
First, one big move that we've already done, and it's going to show results in the next 6-9 months, and that was we brought out a mobile phone policy. The mobile phone policy was, for the last 20 years, we have been importing completely built up phones, which is ridiculous. We were spending $1 billion importing phones, which could have been manufactured here. So we came out with a policy, and as a result of that policy, now many parties have come in, and in the month of September, that was the first time that we produced more locally manufactured phones than we imported. We're still importing because they're ramping up. So we're still importing, but now more phones sold in Pakistan are locally manufactured. So now we're starting to get up to a certain level.
What is the policy? I mean, not specifically mobiles necessarily, but what is the incentives in such policies that you think are needed to bring in the product diversification?
The incentive is that you allow people to bring in items of a phone in the SKD form, which is a semi-knockdown form. So a phone comes into Pakistan, not as one piece, a completely built up unit, but in say 100 pieces.
Okay.
And so we start the beginning of a process of assembling.
Okay.
You always become a first class assembler, world class assembler. Once you've done that, then you start becoming a world class manufacturer. Today, Malaysia is a world class manufacturer because in the 80s and 90s, they became world class assemblers.
Okay.
So that's the route. And now we are now moving into becoming world class assemblers for the domestic market and the...
Have you identified specific sectors that you're interested in developing?
Yes. Well, I'm just saying that mobile phone...
In general. Mobile phones is one that
which are the areas? No, I will answer that question. To move away from textiles, we got to go into engineering, pharmaceuticals, our own food processing products, fruits and vegetables, our own fisheries is a big item. So we have a portfolio of items that we want to get after, and we're doing that now. Now the question comes: are we in the? I asked the Ministry of Commerce because I wanted to show it to the Prime Minister. So before I could show it to the Prime Minister, I had to be sure in my own heart that we are in the right policy. So I asked our people, make an analysis as to where we are on diversification. We made a very simple. There was reams and reams of data, but I made a simple chart, and which said traditional products into traditional markets, non-traditional products, non-traditional markets. Where do we stand? And the results were very interesting. Traditional markets and traditional products, traditional markets, we've grown by 7%. Traditional products in non-traditional markets, it has grown by about 60%. So it means that those people who were just going to European Union and America have now started to move. So that's a
What about non-traditional products to traditional markets?
Right. Now, non-traditional products into traditional markets have started a substantial change. I have it here. I can show it to you if you wanted to see it.
Sure. No, we'll discuss that because that would be interesting. That's something I want to come to. In terms of when you've identified these sectors, what is the policy that you think is going to enable them? For example, in the past, we've relied a lot on subsidies, and we've tried to help certain industries by subsidies and and many other ways. But all it's achieved is them continuing on the same road, and in fact, it hasn't actually encouraged them to do R&D or to move away from the same products that they're being subsidized on.
Well, first of all, this benefit, most of the people that we now want to concentrate on, engineering, pharma, they never utilize those incentives. They never utilize
So they're cheaper for the government.
Pardon?
Are they cheaper for the government then?
No. What it is,
I am not subsidizing them.
Yeah, but I know, but I want to. I feel that to get that quantum jump, let's give them the incentive, and there's another incentive we're giving. Say we give somebody 3% of the invoice value as an incentive. Then we were saying, okay, but if you go into a non-traditional market, Botswana, Argentina, Chile, we will give you 2% more to help you over the freight and extra costs of going to another market, developing that market. And that we've just started. And I hope that through this method of looking at traditional, non-traditional, etc., is good. There's another thing that I want to say, and because I would not be fair if I did not say this. Within textile, which is our traditional market, the world range of products is this much.
Right.
We're only in a very small market.
Right.
And when we had an international conference before COVID came in Lahore, a lot of foreigners had come over. So I gathered them all together and I said, can you please be very, very frank with me? I'm the advisor on commerce. Please say what you want so I can learn from you.
Right.
They said, we have been here one day, one full day. We've looked at everything. We've seen your full range.
Interesting. Right.
You don't produce enough range.
Right.
So we can spend 2 days, 3 days.
But did your textile people need this feedback? I mean, isn't this kind of obvious to them themselves? It
is, but if you're making money.
So it goes back to the point that I'm making. If you're making money on a certain product, then why do R&D and invest in other things?
And go anywhere else.
So how are you intending to move them along that range then?
What we've done is we have reduced, what I've gone and done is I've reduced the duties on all raw materials. That means now you can bring into Pakistan nylon, duty-free, viscose, acrylic, duty-free. Now I'm saying that why are you not getting into these products? Because now there's no duty on it. Also, there is a term called technical textiles. These are high-end fabrics, which are a mixture of 2 or 3 things. And I'm saying, okay, import them. You don't have to manufacture them, import them and manufacture garments.
Right.
Manufacture trousers, manufacture this, whatever you want to manufacture. And that we've done now.
Okay.
So that we did it in June this year.
Okay.
So all that raw material, everything is now duty free.
So it's interesting you say that, because when I talk to several people to understand, commerce and the industries and the issues that industry has, one issue that many people mentioned was the high tariffs that Pakistan has generally.
The high
tariffs.
Yes.
The duties that you're referring to. And textile people were amongst that. But even builders. We're talking about building a NERA Pakistan scheme, and yet builders are paying 30% regulatory duty on steel bars coming in. So this was a constant complaint coming in through various industries that Pakistan has extremely high import duties, which generally around the world you're not seeing at those levels any longer. And that makes them uncompetitive. So their argument would be this makes us uncompetitive because our imports are expensive, both for the local and domestic market, international market.
Yeah. For the domestic market, it makes them expensive.
Right.
For the import, since they get it back, but they get it back 2 years later, 1 year later. So it is an anti-export bias, which I'm talking about.
Which you refer to, yes.
So let me just say.
But can the Commerce Ministry work on that without the compliance or the acquiescence of the FBR?
Yeah, well, it has happened.
Okay.
And I'll tell you how it has happened. Before, all the tariffs was the responsibility of the FBR. It is no longer the responsibility of the FBR. It has come into the Ministry of Commerce.
Okay.
Now we do it. And that is why.
So what do? You set the rates? I just want to understand.
We set the rates. What should be the custom duty on any product? It is us now, because it's a matter of trade, not a matter of revenue.
Yes, okay.
Before, in our country, it was a matter of revenue.
That's why I refer to the FBR. Very interesting. So when did this happen?
This happened in end of 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ever since then, it's here. And this is why I can just mention to you that what we did in the first interim budget of this government, we did a small amount of reduction of duties on raw material. Then we upped it. And then when Hafiz Sheikh was the finance minister, we jumped it.
Right.
And this year with Shaukat Tarina, we jumped it even more. So today, about 50% of the raw materials coming into industry is duty-free.
Okay.
So that's a good number.
Right.
Where there is a problem is because we're in the IMF program, because we have a shortage of, we have a fiscal deficit, revenue is there.
Right.
So we have put regulatory duties, which I find I didn't put it on the main products,
right,
but I put it on some
of the
innocuous products.
Okay.
So that if they come in and they pay higher duties,
okay.
No
but you're
problem.
saying that's a compulsion from the IMF almost to increase
Absolutely.
revenues overall.
Yes, yes.
And with time, as our economy improves, you might be able to get rid of some of those.
Absolutely.
So I want to come back to some discussion of the traditional markets that we have in Pakistan. You referred to the traditional markets, the UK, the US, EU, where almost 60% of our exports go to. Yet we also know that a lot of geopolitical concerns often influence our trade policy or whether we can trade into those countries. Has that meant we've started looking at other countries?
I've never really felt that compulsion. What I will say,
or the pressure, I should say,
is
compulsion.
No, but what is happening actually is with the world coming out of COVID, right now, the biggest two markets that are really absorbing a lot of the goods from around the world just happens to be the US and the EU.
Right.
So our exports to EU and America is going up.
Right.
And what is those exports? Textile.
Right.
So we're back to that same problem.
Right.
But once again,
right,
textiles is the front runner. When we want others to overtake them.
Right.
But right now, today, the amount of orders that our textiles are getting, tremendous. So obviously our farmer will take time because they're taking time to pick up and engineering products and food processing products. So we are in a bit of a dilemma. And we also need dollars. Right. And so if a lot of textiles is going, we should not try to stop them in any way.
Yeah.
So so it's
but what's the geographical diversification that you refer
to? To me, the geographical diversification are two.
Right.
And we've worked on it a lot. Number one is going and regional connectivity.
Okay.
I've been to Iran, I've been to Afghanistan, I've been to Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and we're now going to Kazakhstan.
Okay.
If we can get our connectivity, regional connectivity, and the other thing about regional connectivity is we've got to have an environment whereby there is a free flow of trucks in different directions, owned by different countries.
Right.
And why is this a good time to do that?
Right.
Because sea freights are rocketing.
Right. So it's interesting because that was a question I was going to ask you that you've tweeted recently as well, that, you know, logistical facilitation and the TIR has become a very important part of the strategy. I think NLC took a couple of trucks to Azerbaijan, and then a couple of trucks have arrived from Uzbekistan.
Yes.
Now, what is it? How are you going to facilitate road travel? Because there seems to be huge opportunity there.
There's a huge opportunity. And when I went to Iran last week, they are also now, they have agreed that yes, they will allow our trucks to go through Iran under the TIR convention to Turkey, Uzbekistan. Once you're in Turkey, you're in Europe.
Right, of course. Yeah.
That's one. The other one that we did send one sample truck from Pakistan through Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, and then all the way to Moscow.
Okay.
It actually, we got there, we had sent a truckload of mangoes, and they arrived there.
Mango diplomacy, mango trade. Yeah. So, I mean, how do you intend to facilitate that, though? I mean, is there a one-window operation? Because there seems to be,
absolutely.
You know, customs probably at every point, and how do you get over that?
Absolutely. That's why all the customs are meeting. I told the Uzbek people, they were very, very supportive, that why invent the wheel you've got the TIR convention. Let's all agree to abide by those rules, the customs, etc. And we've sent our people, and then to integrate the two customs. When the Afghanis came last week, they also agreed to that. When I went to Iran, they've also agreed to that. So what I've got to do, and I've set myself a target that by the 31st of March next year, we'll have individual arrangements, and then I would like to call a conference of all the regional countries and just say, okay, now that we've individually agreed, let us all put it on a paper together, that all our trucks can move freely in each other country. Then we're through.
I think that's already a legacy,
if that happens. If that
happens. So let's talk about, I mean, that's very interesting that you're doing that. Look Africa policy is something else that you're focusing on.
And that's the second one. One was the regional connectivity. The second was Look Africa. The regional one, we're calling it Silk Route Reconnect. Because it used to be connected.
You've got fancy names for everything.
Silk Route Reconnect.
So tell me, where are you connecting? Which are the countries you're focusing on? Why Africa? Why did you choose Africa?
Why Africa? When we made an analysis of Africa, I mean, we talk of China, billion-plus people. We talk of India, billion-plus people. Africa as a continent is billion-plus. It shook me. And then the whole issue came up, where do we go? So we had a conference in East Africa in Nairobi, and now next week we go to Lagos. So and what we're trying to do is we're inviting people to come from the surrounding countries. We're asking for the ambassadors to come there. So it is a very large activity, and it'll be 3 days. We're also having a one-country exhibition, so people can see our products.
What kind of value are you putting on this trade? I mean, is there any numbers that you have in mind that you might be able to get out of Africa?
When we look at Africa as a whole, if we can get it up to anywhere between $500 million to $1 billion, I think it'll be a fantastic achievement. Africa is, unfortunately, we lost the last 2 years because of COVID. We couldn't go, they couldn't come. Now we're picking up again. And I'm hopeful. So there are lots of opportunities. Now our tractors, our motorcycles, they are going into Africa.
Very interesting.
And I'm encouraged more.
Are these what we would consider to be non-traditional exports?
Yes.
So this is the non-traditional export to the non-traditional market.
Absolutely. You've hit it right on that. That is the thing. Then we were going to get we're having 28 pharmaceutical companies going. I'll be taking about 100 business people. 28 are in the pharmaceutical, and about 22 in engineering, etc., etc. We might be taking only 2 textile people. They come.
So lots of opportunities in Africa. Now, recently, the Pakistan Pavilion has been set up in Dubai Expo 2020, and all businessmen are full of praise for you about the amount of personal hard work that you've done to put this together, and it's been a huge success. But what is the advantage actually that's going to come out of a expo in Dubai for Pakistan?
First of all, alhamdulillah, the expo has really come out stunningly well. We have 3 objectives. One is, the first objective is feel good factor. And feel good factor is in 2 parts. That when a Pakistani goes there, he comes out feeling proud about his country. And he feels good. And I've heard that from many people. And many Pakistanis who are in the UK and America, elsewhere, they are all going to Dubai. And Expo is what they want to see. That's one. Secondly is a good feel factor by the foreigners, and the expats. the non-Pakistanis. When I've spoken to them and at the actual expo, they said we couldn't believe that this is Pakistan. We never knew that Pakistan was like this. We never knew that your country had such beauty. We didn't know you were so rich in culture and whatnot. So that's one objective. Second objective is tourism.
Okay.
And the videos that we've put up in the expo, in the pavilion, are stunning. Most of the Pakistanis haven't seen that area. There was some part that even I had not seen. They were so beautiful areas. And now we are. So what we've done, we've set up a box there that anybody who wants to go, where do you want to go? Here it is. We're giving them all sorts of information.
Right.
And then the third objective is investment.
Right.
Now, investment, nobody will invest in Pakistan just because he's seen a good pavilion. He will consider Pakistan because he's seen a good pavilion.
Right.
But then he has to come here and he has to then follow the many other things. But we've had...
Has that follow through been followed with the ministry, with these
That's
people?
what we're doing. Yes, yes, that is it. Because we're now noting everybody who's coming. And we're also having seminars.
Okay.
Inside the Expo Pavilion, we have meeting rooms and a 70-man auditorium.
Conferences and so on.
So the conference room. So, and then our own companies, various companies from Pakistan are going there to, and people are already coming.
Okay.
Because of...
are you tracking if there's any kind of orders coming through as a result, direct result of the pavilion?
We're tracking. It's easier to track somebody who says, I want to go to Pakistan as a tourist.
Okay.
Can you get me a visa? I want a visa by there. And he says so. So that is easier.
Right.
On the investment side,
longer, obviously.
It's obviously longer.
Okay. So Zameen.com is a property portal. They've set up a conference in December, the Pakistan Property Event. These kind of private initiatives seem to be taking off. I mean, what do you think the government can do to facilitate this kind of private investment that's ultimately going to come into Pakistan? It's similar to the Pakistan Pavilion as well, right? So
absolutely. No, at the Pakistan Pavilion, we have, because it goes for 6 months, we have 180 days.
Right.
So that conference room is available for 180 days.
Right.
Anybody wants to book any time, please do so. There's no charge, nothing. It belongs to the country, and so anybody can come in.
So apart from, I mean, that's one element of, having a conference room available, but having, let's say, private events organized by the private sector, because one of the things that the Pakistan Pavilion has proven is how efficient the private sector is at delivering, which we all know and hear of from Economics 101, that, private sector is better at these things. How do you think events like that can be, helped?
They've already started. They've already started.
Okay.
Several companies have already had. They want to show something to the world, and they just go to our pavilion.
Okay.
And that has started. In the month of October, we must have done at least 12 of them.
Okay.
Yeah, and then now in November, and then it'll pick up.
And so you've done the Pakistan Pavilion. You're working on Look at Africa. You've got the TIR, Central Asia type initiative going. What are any other regional initiatives that you're looking at right now?
Right. No. Yes, there is one very important one. The Prime Minister is going to go to China. In December.
Right.
And we're going to ask our Chinese friends that we've made the analysis of exports and imports.
Right.
It's still so heavily in your favor.
Right.
So we are going to ask for some revisions.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? I mean, what are the kind of things that you might ask for?
You see, where Pakistan is at a disadvantage is that the same goods going into China from the ASEAN countries go at a lower duty rate than ours. So we're going to ask our Chinese friends, please help us.
Okay.
And give us the same rate in duties.
Okay.
They've given some additional benefits to Bangladesh.
Right.
Please help us. We need it. We're importing so much from you.
Right.
And another amount of export from our side would be just help us in our increasing and help us in our diversification, because our textiles will be more going to the other side of the world.
Okay.
But if the Chinese can take our
some of the non-traditional goods that you want to help develop.
Yes,
okay.
That's what. And so I'm going to tell them that, look, please, if you want to give it in these things, not on the textiles.
So you're going to specify a positive list in a way.
Yes.
Okay, very interesting. A question slightly different. Currently, there's a trend across the world where the Foreign Service and the Trade Department is increasingly merging into one. And the reason is because trade is an essential part of any country's development. So you say, for example, in Australia, they have one department, Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade in Australia. Is this something that we can think about in Pakistan? I mean, especially in light of our recent statements by the NSA with Yusuf, that we're now much more focused on geoeconomics in Pakistan and less so on the geopolitics. And this is the route we want to develop going forward. So that would kind of imply that we should also go for a structural change amongst our ministerial departments as well. Is this something that you've thought about or maybe can think about?
Your statement that many countries in the world are doing this, the answer is yes, they're doing it. Are we ready for that? Mm-hmm. Because 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even these countries were not ready.
Right.
So are we ready? My answer is that we're not ready.
Okay.
Each of the ministries, and I know the weaknesses in the Ministry of Commerce, I know the weaknesses in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and in industries and finance. Mm. We've got to sort out a lot more yet before we take such a drastic change.
Right.
So
you feel it's a very drastic change to do something like that?
I don't think we should do it because I know how tough it is for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to do their things, what they've got to do, and for them to start thinking. And it's a major change for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to even now start thinking that economic is an issue. I've been to many countries during my previous term and now. And I used to talk to ambassadors, and they never even thought that economics was their subject. Now they've started.
Right.
And now you can see everywhere I go, the Prime Minister is talking about it, the Foreign Minister is talking about it. I'm also going to them, please.
But this is in other countries they're talking about it, right? So what should we not be having similar discussions here in Pakistan, given the urgency that Pakistan has in developing itself economically, that our ambassadors should be given trade targets, for example, that we're expecting you've gone to the UK, we want this much business.
I think we certainly want to do this. And it won't be too long that we will be maturing to that level. Mm-hmm. It's been very difficult giving targets to the commercial attaches. Right. Oh, they were.
Have you done that?
Yes. Now we started to get, and because of technology and WhatsApp.
Is this new under your government that commercial attaches have been given targets?
Yes.
They were never given targets before.
No.
So what were they doing there? Having holidays? No. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. They were not given targets.
Okay.
They were firefighting.
Okay, yes.
Anybody rang, look, our goods have been stuck at the port, run and get it out, or do this, or do that, or do this.
So now the targets are dollar value targets?
That's what we want. It's got to be dollar value.
Okay, so you have started this.
It's now the cycle is starting.
Okay.
And we're asking them questions now.
Okay.
All right, what was your figures? Show us your figures.
Right.
First of all, get your figures. I want your monthly. Okay. How much was the exports from Pakistan to your country?
Right.
Let him start thinking, oh, now we started to get the data.
Right.
Now, just tell me your target for the next 2 months. I don't want it for the year. 2 months.
Right.
Close enough?
Right.
Oh, I think I can do this. Okay, please put it in writing. So the cycle
So
is
do you
starting.
think this is the result of you bringing in a unique perspective, given your background as a successful businessman, that you've implemented this in the Ministry of Commerce?
Well, we in business, how can you not have a target?
Exactly. So, I mean, so one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what do you think you've brought into this position because of your background?
One of the first things that I feel I'm trying to bring in, and it's still difficult, is whenever a businessman walks into this corridor, please think of him as a customer.
Mm-hmm.
He's not he's not somebody who's come to fleece something out of the government. Right. He's a customer. Treat him as a customer. Mm-hmm. And then whatever he talks about, you've got to communicate back to him.
Okay.
Well, before, when and people now do say that at least whenever we call the Ministry of Commerce, we get a call back.
Right.
पहले तो होता नहीं था.
Okay.
वो आएगा तो आएगा, नहीं आएगा तो नहीं आएगा. Attitude.
Right.
You see, they wouldn't reply. That's a big change. And stakeholder consultation is another big thing. You don't, and I tell the Ministry of Commerce, you don't have the expertise to do it. And it's not their fault.
Right.
Because the businessman who comes, he's working on a narrower platform, but deeper.
Of course.
A bureaucrat is on a wider platform and shallower.
Yes.
So he doesn't know the details.
Right.
But you've got to have the mental set that you must be wise enough to know that you don't know. And these are the people who know.
Right.
They don't have the full grasp of the whole gamut of things because they're a businessman. They're looking at specifics.
Okay.
So there's a change.
Okay. So my final question would be, you've been now in this position almost 3 years. Is there a legacy that you've thought about, what you would like to leave behind in your tenure?
Yes. One of the first thing that, one thing that has definitely happened is that we took away tariff rationalization, tariff setting away from the FBR, and it's now clearly in the Ministry of Commerce.
Okay.
So that's one very big. Another thing is we're almost there now is this regional connectivity.
Right.
And it was so difficult to get our people to accept that if we want our trucks to go into other countries, then they're going to ask for their trucks to come into our country. Yeah. Oh, security risk, this, that. Well, come on, that's finished now. So the regional connectivity.
Right.
The other thing is this, together with getting the tariffs brought to Ministry of Commerce, is the massive, and I will say it has never happened before, the massive tariff rationalization.
Right.
On Thursday, we're having our first meeting for the next round of rationalization to come in the budget.
Okay.
Who thinks it is so early? About 20 people will come, and we only pick one sector.
Okay.
And this will be the iron and steel sector.
Okay.
I've done textile last year. I did a substantial change in the pharma. That was done last year. This year, the big ticket item is iron and steel.
Okay.
We've got to be able. It's warped, and we've got to iron it out. That will affect everything, all the way from the Sadia into the machines and products.
Okay.
So it will affect everybody.
Okay. Thank you so much, Razak, for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
It's a pleasure.